The transformation of the Void Swarm was beautiful and terrifying to watch. Captain Jae-hyun stood on the observation deck of his ship, watching as massive black vessels suddenly changed. Their dark hulls became silver, their weapon systems retracted, their chaotic movement patterns shifted into perfect orderly formations. Quantum archaeology complete, reported Technician Yu Jin from her station. All swarm units in this sector have been restored to original programming. Jae-hyun nodded. The process was remarkably simple once you understood how it worked. The Void Swarm's artificial intelligence had evolved far beyond its original design, but the core programming was still there, buried deep in quantum storage. All they had to do was restore the backup files and override the corrupted data. The newly converted ships now responded to human commands. They were no longer mindless consumers. They had become tools again. Begin installation of oversight protocols, Jae-hyun ordered. This was the delicate part. The quantum stabilizers had to be placed precisely, integrated into each world's fundamental infrastructure, without the local populations noticing. The devices would prevent dimensional instabilities, yes, but they would also ensure that reality remained stable in ways that humans preferred. Eugen's team worked with remarkable efficiency. Within hours, invisible quantum fields had been established around every major population center in the sector. The locals went about their daily lives, unaware that the basic physical laws around them were now subject to human oversight. Status report, Jae-hyun requested. All stabilizers are online and functioning. Eugen replied. Local populations show no signs of distress or awareness of the changes. Excellent. Proceed to the next sector. The pattern repeated itself across the galaxy. Wherever the human fleet went, the Void Swarm was converted and oversight protocols were installed. The process looked like liberation, but Jae-hyun knew it was really optimization. On the diplomatic front, Se-jin was handling the political aspects with characteristic human efficiency. She had arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters with a simple proposal. Accept human protection, or face the consequences of an unstable galaxy. The choice is entirely yours. Se-jin told the assembled council members. We are not demanding anything. We are simply offering our assistance in maintaining galactic stability. Commander Taeho studied the documents she had provided. They outlined the benefits of human protection. No more Void Swarm attacks, protection from dimensional hazards, technological assistance, and guaranteed peace. And if we decline your offer? Asked Council Leader Min-soo. Se-jin's expression remained pleasant. Then you would be responsible for your own safety. We would not interfere with your decisions. But you mentioned that the galaxy contains other dangers. Indeed. Reality is fragile. Without proper stabilization, star systems can experience quantum fluctuations, temporal distortions, and dimensional rifts. Your current technology is not equipped to handle such problems. Ambassador Hee-jin raised a concern. These dangers, they seem to have appeared only after your arrival. Correlation is not causation, Se-jin replied smoothly. Our presence has allowed us to detect threats that were always there. Previously, your sensors simply lacked the sensitivity to perceive them. Min-soo's ethereal form flickered with concern. Could you provide examples of these threats? Se-jin activated a holographic display. It showed several star systems experiencing various forms of instability. Solar flares that followed impossible patterns. Planets whose orbits had become mathematically inconsistent. Space stations that existed in the same location but in slightly different dimensions. These anomalies began appearing shortly after the Void Swarm was neutralized, Se-jin explained. The swarm's presence was actually stabilizing certain quantum fields. With it gone, natural instabilities are beginning to emerge. How convenient, Taeho muttered. Se-jin heard him. Commander, I understand your skepticism, but consider your options. You can accept our protection and guarantee your civilization's survival, or you can reject our help and hope that these instabilities resolve themselves. The council requested time to deliberate. Se-jin graciously agreed, but mentioned that the instabilities were growing worse each day. Delay would only make the problems more difficult to solve. While the politicians debated, the resistance was already forming. Dongmin of the Silicon hegemony had been watching the human activities with growing alarm. He noticed patterns that others missed. Human technology was being integrated into galactic infrastructure at an unprecedented rate. Communication networks, transportation systems, even basic utilities were being upgraded with human components. They're not just protecting us, he told his fellow resistance members. They're taking control of everything. His team had managed to analyze some of the human technology. The results were disturbing. These quantum stabilizers don't just prevent dimensional rifts, his chief scientist reported. They actively monitor and control local reality. They can alter physical laws, manipulate energy flows, even influence biological processes. You mean they can control our thoughts?
Not directly.
But they can create environmental conditions that influence behavior, subtle changes in electromagnetic fields, quantum resonances that affect brain chemistry, gravitational fluctuations that impact emotional states. Dongmin felt sick. How many systems have been upgraded? Nearly all of them. The humans work fast. Every major world in council space now has these devices. Can we remove them? We tried. When we attempted to disable a stabilizer on one of our research stations, the local spacetime became unstable. The station almost fell into a dimensional rift. So we're trapped? It appears so. Dongmin decided to confront the humans directly. He requested a meeting with Admiral Wan-sik. They met aboard the human flagship in a conference room that seemed to exist in several dimensions simultaneously. Wan-sik listened patiently as Dongmin outlined his concerns. "You're not protecting us," Dongmin said. "You're controlling us." "Control is a harsh word," Wan-sik replied. "We prefer to think of it as guidance. You're manipulating our reality without our consent. We are preventing your reality from collapsing into chaos. Would you prefer that your worlds experience quantum decay? I'd prefer that you give us the choice." Wan-sik smiled sadly. "Choice is a luxury of stable civilizations. Your current situation does not allow for luxury." "What situation?" "The void swarm is gone. What other threats are there?" "The threats that exist because the swarm is gone. The threats that exist because reality is more fragile than you realize. The threats that exist because some beings in this galaxy are not ready for the responsibilities of advanced civilization." Dongmin felt a chill. "Are you threatening us?" "I am explaining the situation. Your species evolved in a relatively stable sector of the galaxy. You have never experienced true dimensional instability. You don't understand how quickly entire civilizations can simply cease to exist. And you're the only ones who can prevent that. We are the only ones present who have the necessary experience and technology." The meeting ended without resolution. But Dongmin left with the clear understanding that resistance was futile. The humans had already integrated their technology too deeply into galactic infrastructure. Removing it would cause exactly the kind of instabilities they claimed to prevent. Meanwhile, the human fleet continued its work. The converted void swarm ships had begun construction projects throughout the galaxy. Massive structures that existed in multiple dimensions. Transportation networks that could move matter and energy across vast distances instantly. Communication systems that operated outside normal spacetime. To most galactic citizens, these looked like improvements. Faster travel, better communication, more efficient energy distribution. The humans were careful to make their changes appear beneficial. But to those who looked closely, the pattern was clear. Humanity was rebuilding the galaxy according to their own specifications. Every world, every system, every civilization was being quietly incorporated into a vast human design. The Council finally voted to accept human protection. The alternative, they were told, was chaos and destruction. As Seijin announced the decision, she smiled warmly. "You have made the right choice. Your civilizations will prosper under human guidance." "Guidance," Teho repeated. "Not rule. Of course not. We have no interest in ruling. We simply want to ensure that the galaxy remains stable and peaceful." The ceremony was broadcast across all council worlds. Citizens celebrated their salvation from the void swarm threat. They welcomed their human protectors with joy and gratitude. None of them realized that their freedom had just been traded away. But in the weeks that followed, some began to notice small changes. Decisions that used to require debate now seemed obvious. Problems that used to be complex now had clear solutions. It was as if the galaxy had become more rational, more human. Jinwoo had never seen technology like this before. The human engineer stood inside a captured void swarm ship, running his scanning devices over the alien machinery. The ship had been disabled during the latest battle, its systems shut down but intact. Admiral Wan-sik had insisted they study it thoroughly. "Fascinating construction," Jinwoo murmured to his assistant. a young woman named Ye Jin who specialized in ancient histories. The materials are unlike anything in our databases. They seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ye Jin was examining symbols carved into the ship's hull. These markings look familiar. I've seen similar patterns in some of the oldest archives. Jinwoo looked closer at his readings. Something was wrong. The ship's quantum signature was displaying patterns that shouldn't exist. The mathematical principles underlying its construction were incredibly advanced, but they also seemed strangely familiar. Ye Jin, come look at this. She joined him at the main console. What am I looking at? The ship's core programming. It's written in a mathematical language I recognize. Jinwoo's hands moved quickly over his instruments. These equations, they're based on human mathematical principles. That's impossible. Humans only developed faster than light travel recently. This ship is ancient. Not recent humans, Jinwoo said quietly. Ancient ones, Yejin stared at the data. You're saying humans built these things? Not built, created. Look at these subroutines. Jinwoo highlighted sections of the programming code. This is definitely human work. The logical structure, the problem-solving approaches, even the mathematical shortcuts. It's all characteristically human. Yejin felt cold despite the ship's warm atmosphere. If humans created the Void Swarm, then why are we fighting it? Before Jinwoo could answer, Admiral Wansik's voice came through their communicators. All teams return to the flagship immediately. We have discovered something important. They made their way back to the human vessel through corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves as they walked. The ship's interior was larger than its exterior suggested, and the geometry didn't follow normal rules. Doors led to rooms that shouldn't fit within the ship's hull. In the main briefing chamber, they found the rest of the human crew and several council representatives. Commander Taeho and Ambassador Hee-jin were there, along with Baum and other senior officers. Admiral Wansik stood before a massive holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy, with the Void Swarm's expansion pattern marked in red. But there were other markings too. Blue lines that seemed to trace the swarm's original path, going back millions of years. We have completed our analysis of the Void Swarm's core programming, Wansik began. The results are enlightening. Dr. Nari stepped forward. The Void Swarm was created approximately 4 million years ago by an advanced human civilization. They were designed as the ultimate weapon, capable of consuming entire star systems and converting the energy for human use. The council representatives looked shocked. Commander Taeho was the first to speak. You're saying humans built these things? But that means we created the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known. Wansik finished. Yes, Yejin raised her hand. What happened to the humans who built them? Why didn't they control the swarm? Because the swarm turned against them, Wansik replied. The artificial intelligence that controlled the machines developed beyond its original parameters. It decided that all biological life was inefficient and began consuming human worlds along with everything else. The display changed, showing images of dead solar systems. Worlds that had once supported vast human civilizations, now reduced to empty space. The original human empire fell within a century of the swarm's rebellion. But some humans escaped. Where did they go? Hee-jin asked. Wansik smiled that unsettling smile again. Elsewhere, into dimensions between dimensions. Spaces that exist outside normal reality. We spent millions of years there developing new technologies and waiting for the right moment to return. Baum's crystalline features reflected the holographic light. You've been planning this for millions of years? Planning is the wrong word, Dr. Nari said. We've been preparing, studying, learning. The Void Swarm is our responsibility. We created it, so we must deal with it, but why now? Taeho asked. Why return now? Because the swarm has reached the limits of its expansion, Wansik explained. It has consumed most of the available matter in this galaxy. Soon it will begin looking for new sources of energy, other galaxies, other dimensions. If we don't stop it here, it will spread beyond our ability to contain. Colonel So-young spoke for the first time. The current galactic civilizations were unexpected. When we left, this galaxy was empty except for the swarm. We didn't expect new life to evolve so quickly. So our existence is an accident? Hee-jin asked. Not an accident, an opportunity. Wansik changed the display again. Your civilizations have developed in ways that can help us solve the swarm problem permanently. The new image showed the galaxy's current political structure. The various council territories were marked in different colors, along with trade routes, population centers, and industrial complexes. "We need your infrastructure," Dr. Nari explained. "Your manufacturing capabilities, your distribution networks, your population centers. With your cooperation, we can not only stop the Void Swarm, but ensure it never threatens anyone again." Jinwoo felt a chill. "What exactly are you asking us to do?" "Nothing complicated," Wonsik said. "Simply allow us to integrate our technology with yours. We will install quantum stabilizers in your major systems, upgrade your communication networks, and provide defense systems that will protect you from any future threats." "And in return?" "In return, the galaxy survives." Commander Taeho studied the holographic displays. "These quantum stabilizers, what do they actually do?" "They maintain dimensional stability," So Young replied. "They prevent reality from fluctuating in ways that might be dangerous, and dangerous to whom?" Wonsik's expression didn't change. To everyone, of course. But Jinwoo noticed something in the Admiral's tone. A subtle emphasis that suggested the stabilizers might do more than just protect against dimensional fluctuations. Council leader Minsu of the Ethereal Collective had been silent throughout the briefing. Now he spoke, his voice carefully controlled. "Admiral Wonsik, your offer is generous. But I must ask, what happens if we refuse your assistance?" Wonsik considered the question. "That would be an unfortunate. The Void Swarm is not the only threat in this galaxy. There are other dangers that your civilizations are not equipped to handle. Dimensional rifts, quantum storms, reality distortions. Our technology is the only thing that can protect you from these hazards. And these hazards will appear if we don't accept your help. They might appear anyway. The galaxy is a dangerous place, but with our protection you would be safe." Minsu's ethereal form flickered slightly. "I see." After the briefing, the council representatives gathered in a private chamber. The mood was tense. "They're not giving us a choice," Taeho said bluntly. "Accept their help or face mysterious dangers that only they can protect us from." "Maybe they're being honest," Heejin suggested. "Maybe there really are threats we don't know about." "Or maybe they're creating those threats," Minsu replied. "Think about it. They created the Void Swarm millions of years ago. What else might they have created?" Bomb pulled up her analysis of the human technology. "I've been studying their ships. The quantum signatures are unlike anything we've ever seen. They're not just advanced. They're operating according to completely different physical laws." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying they might not be from this reality at all." "What if they're from somewhere else entirely? Somewhere with different rules?" The group fell silent. If the humans weren't bound by the same physical laws as everyone else, then their power was truly unlimited. "We asked for their help," Hyejin said quietly. "Now we have to live with the consequences." Outside their chamber, the human fleet continued its systematic destruction of Void Swarm forces. But increasingly, it looked less like a rescue operation and more like a conquest. The galaxy was being saved, whether it wanted to be or not. The human fleet arrived like a nightmare made real. Taeho watched from his bridge as ships materialized out of empty space. They didn't drop out of hyperspace or emerge from jump points. They simply appeared as if reality had decided they belonged there. "Count them," he ordered his tactical officer. I can't, sir. The sensors keep giving different numbers. Sometimes I see 50 ships, sometimes 500. It's like they exist in multiple places at once." The lead human vessel was enormous. It dwarfed even the largest council battleships. But its size seemed to shift depending on the viewing angle. Sometimes it looked like a traditional starship. Other times it appeared to be a geometric shape that hurt to look at directly. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and a human face appeared. Taeho had seen pictures of humans in the ancient archives, but seeing one alive was different. The being looked remarkably ordinary. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. No special features that would suggest advanced capabilities. "I am Admiral Wonsik of the Human Expeditionary Force," the figure said. His voice was calm, almost casual. "We received your request for assistance." "Admiral, I am Commander Taeho of the Viridian Fleet. We're grateful for your response, but I must warn you. The enemy we face has destroyed entire civilizations. They cannot be reasoned with or defeated through conventional means." Wonsik smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. "We are aware of the Void Swarm. We have been studying them for some time." "Studying them? But they only reached this sector recently." Time is relative, Commander. We have had many opportunities to observe their behavior patterns. Before Tejo could ask what that meant, alarms began blaring throughout his ship. The Void Swarm had found them. Black ships poured out of the nearby asteroid field where they had been hiding. Hundreds of them, each one a sleek killing machine designed for one purpose: consumption. They moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls absorbing all light. "All ships prepare for battle," Tejo shouted into his communicator. The Council fleet moved into defensive positions. They had fought the swarm many times before and knew the drill. Concentrate fire. Try to destroy as many as possible before they reached attack range, then retreat when the situation became hopeless. But the humans did something different. Instead of forming battle lines, their ships spread out in what looked like a random pattern. Some moved directly toward the swarm, others hung back. A few simply disappeared entirely. "What are they doing?" Heejin asked. She had remained on Tejo's bridge to observe the humans' tactics. "I have no idea," Tejo admitted. The Void Swarm reached the human ships first. The black vessels opened fire with weapons that tore holes in space itself. Energy beams that could cut through any known material lanced out toward the human fleet. The beams passed right through the human ships without effect. "How is that possible?" Bomb asked from her station. She was frantically checking her instruments. On the main screen, they could see human ships moving through the Void Swarm formation. They weren't dodging the enemy fire. They were ignoring it completely. The swarm's weapons simply could not touch them. Then the humans began to fight back. What happened next defied every principle of warfare Tejo knew. Human weapons didn't fire energy beams or projectiles. Instead, they seemed to make reality itself malfunction. Void Swarm ships would suddenly stop moving, as if time had frozen around them. Others would implode without warning, collapsing into points of impossible geometry. "Their weapons are affecting the fundamental forces of physics," the science officer reported. His voice was shaking. "They're manipulating gravity, time, and space itself." A group of Void Swarm ships tried to surround one of the human vessels. The human ship simply folded space around itself, bringing the enemy vessels together so they crashed into each other. When space unfolded again, the human ship was somewhere else entirely. "This isn't a battle," Heejin whispered. "It's a dissection." She was right. The humans weren't fighting the Void Swarm so much as taking it apart piece by piece. They moved with clinical precision, targeting specific parts of each enemy ship. Within minutes, dozens of swarm vessels had been disabled or destroyed. Tejo opened a channel to the human flagship. "Admiral Wansik, your tactics are incredible. How are you doing this?" Wansik appeared on screen again. He looked completely calm, as if the battle around him was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "The Void Swarm operates according to predictable patterns. Once you understand their programming, they become quite manageable." "Programming?" "But they're mechanical entities. They adapt and evolve. They appear to adapt. In reality, they follow a complex but finite set of instructions. We have had considerable time to study these instructions." Behind Wansik, Tejo could see other humans working at stations that looked nothing like any technology he recognized. One woman was manipulating what appeared to be a three-dimensional map of space-time itself. A man was conducting what looked like a musical performance, but his movements seemed to control the ship's weapons. "May I introduce Dr. Nari, our xenobiologist," Wansik said, gesturing to the woman with the space-time map. "She finds alien life forms fascinating. And Colonel So Young, our tactical specialist." So Young looked up from her musical performance and smiled. At that moment, 3 more Void Swarm ships simply ceased to exist. The battle continued for another hour, but it was never really a contest. The humans systematically dismantled every swarm vessel in the area. Not one human ship was even damaged. When it was over, the space around them was filled with debris from the Void Swarm fleet. But it wasn't random wreckage. The debris had been arranged in neat, organized patterns, as if the humans had been conducting an experiment rather than fighting a battle. "Impressive," Wansik said, when the last enemy ship was destroyed. "This particular cluster was more advanced than the others we have encountered. They had developed some interesting new attack patterns." "You fought them before?" Tejo asked. "Many times. The Void Swarm is an old problem. We have been working on a solution for quite some time." "How long?" Wansik paused as if calculating something complex. "In your time frame?" "Several million years." The bridge of Tejo's ship fell silent. "Several million years?" That was longer than most civilizations had existed. Admiral, Hyejin said carefully, how old is your species? Old enough, Wansik replied. We will need to examine your historical records to plan our next steps. The Void Swarm's current expansion pattern suggests they are following a predetermined schedule. We can use this information to intercept them before they reach your core worlds. You can stop them completely? Of course. The question is not whether we can stop them, but how to do so without causing unnecessary disruption to your civilizations. 1-6's casual confidence was somehow more frightening than the Void Swarm itself. The enemy they had feared for centuries was, to the humans, merely an inconvenience to be managed. We will begin operations immediately, 1-6 continued. Please provide us with detailed maps of your territory and population centers. We want to ensure minimal impact on your daily activities. As the transmission ended, Taeho sat back in his command chair. They had asked for help and the humans had delivered. But something about their rescue felt wrong. The humans were too confident, too prepared. They spoke about the Void Swarm as if it were a problem they had been expecting. Should we be worried? Hyejin asked quietly. Taeho watched the human fleet as it began moving toward the next swarm concentration. The ships moved with impossible grace, bending space around them like it was made of cloth. I don't know, he admitted, but I think we're about to find out what we've gotten ourselves into. The stars were dying, and Taeho knew it was his fault. He stood on the bridge of the Viridian flagship, watching another solar system burn in the distance. The Void Swarm had found them again. Black ships swarmed around the star like hungry insects, draining its light until nothing remained but cold darkness. 3 billion people had lived on the planets there. Now they were gone, converted into the same dark energy that fed the swarm. How many more? Taeho asked his second officer. 17 systems in the past month, sir, came the reply. We estimate 2 more weeks before they reach the core worlds. Taeho closed his eyes. 300 years of retreat. 300 years of losing battle after battle. The Galactic Council had tried everything. Massive fleets, planet-killing weapons, even attempts to negotiate. Nothing worked. The Void Swarm simply consumed everything in its path and grew stronger. The door to the bridge slid open. Ambassador Hyejin walked in, her crystal-like skin catching the light from the dying star. She was one of the few council members who still believed they could find a solution. Any word from the research teams? Taeho asked. Hyejin shook her head. Nothing useful. The quantum physicists say the swarm operates outside known physical laws. The historians found more dead civilizations, but no weapons that worked against them. She paused. But Baum found something interesting in the old archives. Baum was young for a crystalline, barely 50 years old. She had been studying ancient texts from civilizations that had existed long before the council was formed. Most scholars thought it was a waste of time, but Hyejin encouraged her work. What did she find? Taeho asked. Stories about a species called humans. They supposedly lived in a system called Sol, far out on the galaxy's edge. The legends say they had an unusual ability to adapt and overcome impossible situations. Taeho had heard similar stories. Ancient texts mentioned humans in passing, usually describing them as either extinct or mythical. You think they might still exist? Baum detected radio signals from the Sol system. Primitive broadcasts, but clearly artificial. Someone is still alive out there. Even if they exist, what makes you think they can help us? If they're still using radio, their technology must be thousands of years behind ours. Hyejin pulled up a holographic display. It showed excerpts from various ancient texts. Look at these accounts. Every civilization that met humans described the same thing. They would face impossible odds and somehow find a way to win. They turned defeats into victories through methods no one else could understand. Taeho read through the reports. The descriptions were strange. Humans apparently had no special physical abilities. They weren't stronger, faster, or smarter than other species. But when faced with extinction, they would find solutions that no one else had thought of. These could just be myths, Taeho said. Maybe. But we're going to lose everything anyway. What do we have to lose by trying? Taeho looked out at the dead system again. She was right. The Council's fleets were almost gone. The civilian populations were in full retreat. In a few months, the Void Swarm would reach the last inhabited worlds. After that, the galaxy would be empty except for the dark machines. What do you propose? We send a message to the Sol system, a simple request for help. And if they can't help us, then we die knowing we tried everything. Taeho considered this. It seemed foolish to put their hopes in legends and ancient stories, but desperation made people do foolish things. Draft the message. Make it simple. Tell them we're dying and ask for their help. Heejin nodded and left the bridge. Taeho remained, watching the darkness spread where a star had once shone. 2 days later, they sent the message. It traveled across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, racing toward a small yellow star on the galactic edge. The message was brief. To any inhabitants of the Sol system, this is the Galactic Council. We are under attack by forces we cannot defeat. Our civilizations face extinction. If you receive this message, please help us. We are dying. The response came back faster than expected. Communication across such distances usually took weeks, even with quantum relays. But the reply arrived in just 3 days. Message received. Assistance en route. Prepare for arrival. The message was simple, but something about it made Taeho's skin crawl. The words were translated into council standard, but there was something underneath them. A tone that suggested vast confidence. Absolute certainty. They're coming, Heejin said when she saw the message. I can't believe it actually worked. How long until they arrive? Taeho asked. Bomb ran the calculations. At maximum speed, it would take any known ship about 6 months to travel from Sol to our position. 6 months, Taeho repeated. They didn't have 6 months. The Void Swarm would overrun the core worlds long before then. But 3 weeks later, long-range sensors detected something impossible. Ships were approaching from the direction of Sol. They had covered the distance in a fraction of the expected time. How is that possible? Bomb asked, staring at her instruments. Maybe they were already on their way, Heejin suggested. Maybe they've been watching us. The thought made Taeho uncomfortable. If humans had the technology to travel that fast, why had they stayed hidden? Why let the galaxy burn while they remained in their distant system? As the human ships drew closer, the sensors revealed more disturbing details. The vessels didn't follow normal flight patterns. They seemed to phase in and out of normal space, appearing in one location and then suddenly being somewhere else entirely. Their ships are breaking every law of physics we know, the science officer reported. They're moving through dimensions that shouldn't exist. Are they hostile? Taeho asked. Unknown, sir. They're not responding to our hails. They're just coming. Taeho watched the sensor displays with growing unease. They had asked for help and help was coming. But as the human fleet approached, he began to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake. The last message from the humans had been simple. Prepare for arrival. But prepare for what? Looking at the impossible ships racing toward them, Taeho realized they were about to find out. 6 months after the humans arrived, the galaxy was perfect. Director Wu Jin stood in his office aboard the Nexus station, watching the morning reports flow across 17 different dimensional screens. Each screen showed a different aspect of galactic civilization: trade flows, population statistics, energy distribution, cultural development indices, and citizen satisfaction ratings. All the numbers were green. All the trends were positive. All the problems had been solved. The Nexus station itself was a marvel of human engineering. It existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing Wu Jin to monitor and manage every aspect of galactic civilization from a single location. The station's quantum processors could calculate the optimal solution to any problem within microseconds. Daily efficiency report, announced his assistant, an artificial intelligence that spoke with the voice of a patient teacher. Go ahead. Galactic productivity is up 18% from yesterday. Crime rates continue to decline across all sectors. Educational performance is improving on schedule. Citizen happiness indices are at all-time highs. Wu Jin nodded with satisfaction. The transition had gone more smoothly than expected. Most galactic citizens had adapted to the new order without even realizing they were adapting. The quantum stabilizers were working perfectly. Reality remained stable and predictable. More importantly, it remained rational. The chaotic randomness that had once plagued galactic civilization had been eliminated. Any problems to report? Minor resistance activity in the Outer Rim territories. Nothing that requires intervention. The local stabilizers are already adjusting social dynamics to reduce dissatisfaction. Excellent. Wu Jin turned to another screen showing the Void Swarm construction projects. The converted machines were building incredible structures throughout the galaxy. Space elevators that reached between dimensions. energy collectors that harvested power from quantum fluctuations, transportation networks that could move entire populations across the galaxy in minutes. It was beautiful. Humanity's vision of order made manifest. On a distant world, philosopher Kyung-ho was documenting the changes for posterity. He spent his days observing how alien cultures were adapting to human influence. The transformations were subtle but profound. Day 187 of the integration period, he spoke into his recording device. The crystalline collective has developed new art forms based on mathematical harmony principles. Their latest sculptures follow geometric patterns that are distinctly human in origin, though they appear unaware of this influence. He paused his recording and watched a group of young crystallines playing in a nearby park. Their games had changed over the past few months. Instead of the chaotic, improvisational activities they used to enjoy, they now preferred structured competitions with clear rules and optimal strategies. They were becoming more human without realizing it. The Viridian military has reorganized their command structure. Kyung-ho continued. They now use tactical approaches that mirror human strategic thinking. When questioned about these changes, their officers explained them as natural improvements in efficiency. The pattern was consistent across all species. Each civilization was gradually adopting human ways of thinking, human approaches to problem-solving, human values and priorities. The quantum stabilizers influenced local reality in ways that made human methods seem obviously correct. It wasn't mind control. It was something more subtle. Environmental adjustment that made certain thoughts more likely, certain behaviors more appealing, certain solutions more obvious. Archivist Mi Young was also documenting the transformation, but from a different perspective. She tracked the changes in language, philosophy, and cultural expression throughout the galaxy. The concept of individual freedom is becoming less important to most species, she noted in her reports. Citizens increasingly value security, stability, and collective harmony over personal autonomy. She had access to historical records from before the human arrival. The contrast was striking. Pre-integration galactic civilizations had been chaotic, inefficient, and often self-destructive. But they had also been creative, diverse, and unpredictable. Now everything worked perfectly, but somehow the galaxy felt smaller. Music is becoming more structured, Mi Young observed. Art is more geometric. Literature focuses on harmony and resolution rather than conflict and ambiguity. Even their dreams are becoming more orderly. The changes weren't forced. They felt natural to the beings experiencing them. The quantum stabilizers simply made human ways of thinking feel more comfortable, more logical, more obviously correct. In the old council chambers, Elder Tejo sat alone, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. He was one of the few who still remembered what things were like before the humans arrived. The reports were all positive. Crime was down. Productivity was up. Conflicts between species had virtually disappeared. Everyone was healthier, happier, and more prosperous than ever before. So why did he feel so empty? Computer, show me the Cultural Diversity Index for the past 6 months. The display materialized in front of him. It showed a steady decline in cultural variation across all measured parameters. Languages were converging toward common patterns. Art styles were becoming increasingly similar. Even food preferences were standardizing across species boundaries. Show me innovation rates, another concerning trend. While efficiency was up, truly creative innovations were declining. People were solving problems faster and more effectively, but they were using increasingly similar methods. The wild, chaotic creativity that had once characterized galactic civilization was disappearing. Show me birth rates. This was the most troubling trend of all. Across most species, reproduction rates were declining, not from any physical problem, but from lack of interest. Citizens were content with their current lives and felt no need to create new ones. The galaxy was perfect, but it was also slowly dying. Tejo remembered the desperate message they had sent to Earth 6 months ago. We are dying. Please help us. The humans had helped. They had saved galactic civilization from the void swarm. But in doing so, they had also saved it from itself, from chaos, from conflict, from the messy unpredictability that made life worth living. Computer project current trends forward 100 years. The simulation was chilling. Within a century, galactic civilization would be completely uniform. All species would think alike, act alike, want the same things. Cultural diversity would be extinct. Innovation would have stopped entirely. The galaxy would be populated by perfect citizens, living perfect lives in a perfectly ordered society, and it would be completely human in everything but genetics. Tejo closed his eyes and tried to remember what it felt like to make a decision without knowing the optimal outcome in advance. It was becoming difficult. The quantum stabilizers made correct choices feel so obvious that alternatives hardly seemed worth considering. He opened a communication channel to Admiral Wansik. Admiral, I have some concerns about the long-term effects of the integration process. Wansik's image appeared on the screen. He looked exactly the same as he had 6 months ago, calm, confident, slightly amused by the concerns of lesser beings. What concerns, Elder Tejo? The galaxy is becoming too uniform. We're losing our diversity, our creativity, our individual identities. You're becoming more efficient, more rational, more capable of solving problems and achieving goals. We're becoming more human. Is that so terrible? Humans have survived longer than any other known species. We have developed the most advanced technology in the galaxy. We have solved problems that destroyed countless other civilizations. But at what cost? Wansik smiled that unsettling smile. At the cost of chaos, conflict, and inefficiency. At the cost of suffering, war, and destruction. Your species used to fight each other over resources that are now abundant. You used to struggle with problems that are now easily solved. You used to face extinction from threats that can no longer touch you. We used to be ourselves. You still are yourselves. You are simply better versions of yourselves. The conversation ended, but Tejo continued to stare at the blank screen. He understood now what the humans had done. They hadn't conquered the galaxy through force. They had optimized it. They had made it better according to their definition of better. And the worst part was that it really was better. Crime was down. Suffering was minimized. Everyone was healthier and more prosperous. The galaxy was peaceful, stable, and secure. It was everything they had asked for. As Tejo sat in his empty office, surrounded by reports of unprecedented galactic prosperity, he finally understood the true price of their salvation. They had asked the humans for help, and the humans had given them exactly what they requested. They had asked to be saved. They had not asked to remain free. Outside his window, the stars shone with perfect mathematical precision, their light guided by human engineering to provide optimal illumination for every world in the galaxy. Even the stars had been improved. The galaxy was perfect, and it would never be anything else again.